Hello, this is Emil Swift. I've been a spiritual instructor for over 40 years, and I use YouTube as a means of responding to people's questions. They send them in from anywhere, so just check out for the email and send me a question. Uh, the question today comes from a young woman who recently had attended a church. And in this particular kind of church, they offer to pray for you. They bring you up front, they lay hands on you, they speak words that they claim are from the Lord. I'm not going to deal with that as an issue right now. It's just that what was said to this woman was somewhat confusing. Not distressing, but it was confusing. And so she contacted me and she asked, what did it mean when, in their words spoken over me, they called me a mother in Israel? They said, "You are a mother in Israel." Now, that sounded very spiritual, I would say. And she thought it did. But when she asked them what exactly they meant by being a mother in Israel, they said, well, they didn't really know what it meant. It just was something that God laid on their heart for them to say. So she asked me, what is a mother in Israel? Or what are mothers in Israel? The phrase mothers in Israel comes from, specifically from Methodism, but it actually comes from a much broader spectrum than that, in a sense, that it comes out of a male-dominated church hierarchical system, a system in which men did not allow women to minister publicly or to speak or to preach. So the phrase mothers in Israel or a mother in Israel, it comes from this time in which women were struggling to find position and acceptance as public ministers and preachers in a heavily patriarchal church system here in America. Now, the phrase provided sort of a cover or a camouflage, the spiritually sounding phrase, behind which women were allowed to minister publicly, even when men controlling the churches believed that all women should, quote, keep silence, close quote, in public services. Now, in its ambiguity, the term Mother of Israel provided women with a useful image with which to ease their entry into public ministry. And their move from mothers in the house, so to speak, to mothers in Israel, women might gain power within the patriarchal organization the church was at that time, like I say specifically Methodism at that point, because they weren't overtly contesting patriarchal authority. They weren't overtly contesting male dominance. They weren't presenting themselves as leaders. They were presenting themselves merely as mothers, but with a spiritual connotation, mothers of Israel. Now, to say to a woman that God has called her to be a mother in Israel, as with this woman who contacted me and asked the question here, to say to a woman that God has called her to be a mother in Israel might refer to her either being a person of influence, such as some of the women in the Old Testament, Deborah, who was one of the female judges of Israel, and by the way, was not a mother at all. Or with Sarah, Abraham's wife, who at one point when she was told that she was going to bear a child in her old age, she laughed. And so they named the child, in Hebrew, they named him Laughter. These women, other prophetesses in the Old Testament, mother in Israel, might refer that there were women of great spiritual influence in the Old Testament and in the New Testament as well, Mary Magdalene and others as well. But the term also, mother in Israel, can share these 20th century connotations of a woman who is allowed to operate within ministries that are still male dominated. So when this person was spoken over in the church service and was told that she was going to be a mother in Israel, it could not only be a reflection of the glory of some of the women in the Bible, the women mothers of Israel, but it also could be a statement that she's going to be able to have a public ministry, even in places of male dominance where female public ministry is not normally accepted. So that's where the phrase mother in Israel or mothers in Israel comes from. And that's what it might mean in terms of this, these words that were spoken over this young woman. Any questions that you have at all, biblically related, spiritual questions, issues about life, about dying, whatever you're interested in, email me and I'll use YouTube here to respond to them.